Good afternoon, everybody. Today's the day, signature day. Global Compact for Migration will be signed tonight, I guess. Everybody who's been talking about it has been saying 10th, 11th. So I would imagine by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, we will be signatories to the Global Compact on Migration. This is the petition against that. It's an official Parliament of Canada House petition started by the leader of the People's Party, Maxime Bernier. There are 55,000 signatures at this point in time. You can sign at the top, or you can scroll down to see where the signatures come from, the breakdown, and sign at the bottom. Don't forget to click the email, or the link in the email they send you. Otherwise, your signature will not count. You can join the conversation as well. One of my least favorite things about modern day Canada is the stifling and silencing of comments in news or anything like that. You can't have a conversation. They shut it down. And it's very frustrating. So even on Twitter, or sorry, not on Twitter. Twitter blacks things out and says this content may not be suitable for you. But even on Reddit, right? Like if you go on R Canada or R Ontario or any of those main Canadian subreddits, the mods there will just blacklist you, ban you if you start talking about this stuff or start talking poorly about immigration. Lisa Raitt. So that's why I started this forum. So to keep the conversation open, it is a private forum, so you have to join to read and to comment. So it's free. Join if you like. We'd love to have you. Okay, back to Twitter and what's going on. Lisa Raitt, who is the deputy leader of the opposition and member of parliament from Milton, she says, thread, one more piece of info when talking about whether the Global Compact will have an impact on Canadian law. In a blog, Ann Peters, director of the Max Planck Institute for Comparative Public Law and International Law in Germany, explained it does have some legal weight. She notes that it is worded to encourage domestic courts and authorities to consider it in the interpretations of the law. Immigration agencies could also draw on it in making discriminatory decisions. She concludes, signing the Migration Compact will not be irrelevant in legal terms. Taking this together with our SCC's practice of looking to international agreements to help interpretation of charter protections, it is appropriate to state that signing the Global Compact has an effect. But why go through the trouble of researching and analyzing the legal issue when it's just so much easier to call those who are cautious, quote, hard right, and paint them as intolerant? And are they doing that? Yes, they are. Here is Katie Telford, and she is a Toronto Star, or she's somebody who is linking to this Toronto Star article. And it says, Scheer's conservatives are taking a worrisome turn on migrants. Quote, sends a clear message that Scheer is listening to the segment of the population attuned to the far-right message, throwing in its hand with such extreme elements. And it's a link to this Toronto Star article. And it says, Andrew Scheer's conservatives are taking a worrisome turn on migrants. And I'm just going to read you the first two paragraphs. If you wondered to yourself ever what it's like to read propaganda, straight up from the horse's mouth propaganda that, Hitler and Goebbels and all of these people dreamed up, here it is, served up on your plate with $600 million of our own tax money right behind it. From the Toronto Star, quote, specters haunting Canada, or at least the parts of it susceptible to the allure of populist right-wing thinking. According to the latest theory sweeping these quarters, our borders are about to be erased, our citizenship undermined, our very sovereignty reduced to naught. The alleged culprit? A document wordily entitled The Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, to be adopted next week by Canada and dozens of other countries at a United Nations-sponsored conference in Marrakesh, Morocco. They're trying to marginalize people. They're trying to make it us versus them. They're trying to say, we all agree, reasonable people agree, but they're forgetting to mention that the Toronto Star is on the government payroll. They're cratering. Their readership is tanking. People aren't paying for fake news. And so they have to go to the government. And the government is more than happy to give them money so long as they print what they're told. And the Toronto Star is evidently more than happy to print what they're told. Here's Maxime Bernier on Roy Green's show. And I'm just going to let you hear the relevant parts. The later part that he talks about is a conversation that is interesting as well. You should listen to his show. This one particularly was interesting. But here's Maxime Bernier in about 20 seconds. And I let Mr. Green introduce Maxime Bernier a bit, but on the Global Compact specifically. Max gets into the weeds and into details. I appreciate it. He is good on this, so have a listen.
Right now, we are at 292 up today, and it's great. We'll be able to achieve our goal to have 338 riding association in every riding in this country. So that's going very well, and I'm very happy with that. And by the way, I want to thank also all our volunteers who are helping us all across the country to do that.
Okay. Well, there are those people who wrote you off or are still writing you off. I would not do that. I think there's a lot yet to be said about what might happen with your party. Now, what's your concern about the UN Compact?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud to be one of the first leaders of a political party in Canada a month ago to be against that and to say I said at that time to the federal government, to the Trudeau government, that to sign that compact because it is part of a concerted international effort to promote migration and make it look like it is a normal thing that countries should embrace and facilitate. For us, it is not normal, and we must not try to promote more migrations across the world. And I think that is very important. But as you said in the beginning, some people are saying, like the Prime Minister, it is a non-binding treaty. Canada will keep our sovereignty. Yes, okay, it's not binding, but why signing a treaty? And you will have to agree with the principle, and you will have to change your legislation, not by force, but because you are signing this treaty and these compacts. So, and that will have an impact on our jurisprudence also in the future in Canada. So we must not sign that. And altogether, I think that Canadians, 49% of them are saying that we must have immigration level lower than what we have right now and not always more and more and more immigrants.
So, as you just said, we're told there's nothing to be concerned about, that the pact is voluntary and that our borders will not be opened to any migrant who can make it to Canada. Others say that migration will be a human right and to criticize it will be risky for anyone, including people in media, and freedom of speech might be history.
Yeah, and that's another part in the compact, I think the Trudeau government agree with that because also they just decided to give $600 million to the newspaper and the traditional media. And in the compact, you have a clause in the compact saying that you must, the media and the government must use is propaganda and try to manipulate the media for having a positive coverage on migration. So, that's not the role of the government. The media must be independent from the government, not dependent from the government. First of all, that $600 million, it is a waste of money, and it's not good for democracy. But signing that and agreeing with the clause that just say that they must promote positive image of migration, and I think it is not the role of the government to do that.
Not something the United States will look upon very, very favorably. Canada's signing on to this compact. I've already seen some articles or some news coverage from the United States expressing concern.
Yes, and also we can have some concern also in Canada because what's happening right now in my own province in Quebec with the migration, the illegal migrants that are crossing the border at the Roxham Road. We must stop that, and I think that's why only 6% of Canadians they agree to have more immigrants in this country. Only 6%. When the Trudeau government now they're raising by 40% the number of immigrants entering our country. But the most important in that compact, all these migrants, it is written in the compact, they must immediately get the same privileges as Canadian citizens. That will be another huge cost for the country. We just saw last week that the cost for the illegal immigration right now, it's about more than $1 billion.
In 1 year.
So that's what.
In 1 year.
In 1 year. Yeah, so that's why, all that together, I understand the population to be against that compact.
Well, if you're going to do something like this, which will have wide-ranging consequences for this country and has global implications and has other countries backing out, countries that were signing on to it, ready to sign on. Australia is bidding one of them, as I said, Switzerland another. We'll be speaking with the Swiss Member of Parliament before the end of the hour. But you want to have some logical explanations, and Mr. Husson has said that signing on to the compact will, in fact, allow Canada to work with partner countries on this pact, this compact, and provide them assistance in creating the kind of environmental, or not environmental, but economic environment in their countries which will dissuade people from leaving and becoming migrants. And my question is, why do you need a compact to do that? You can do that by just engaging in a bilateral agreement.
Absolutely. And if you go on the UN, they are for migration, but migration, it is something that is happening to people, and I can understand that they want to leave their country because it's very tough for them, for their security and all that. But the goal must be to do everything all together, every country, to be sure that they will be able to stay in their own country first. But no, that's not the goal. The goal is, okay, yes, migration is good, and let's have more migrants, and that's not what we believe in.
No, and far too many efforts the United Nations have undertaken have turned out to be not exactly successful. Mr. Bernier, thank you for the time. Good talk.
And that's where he leaves it. So I'm just going to recap. Mr. Green said the U.S. looks poorly on this. He's already seen some U.S. news saying that this is a problem, and it is a problem. We share the longest unguarded border with the United States. If we start letting in potential terrorist ISIS fighters and they just walk on over into the U.S., that's a big problem, and Donald Trump isn't going to stand for that. It removes our sovereignty, and we've gone through this. I have a series of videos, a countdown to the Global Compact on Migration. Just look in the past 10 days. I've done 2 videos a day outlining the cost of this. It's $1 billion. We budgeted 172, we being the Liberal Justin Trudeau government budgeted $172 million in 2018's budget to cover the cost of illegal border crossers. We have spent $1 billion on this, $340 million at federal costs for processing, $200 million in Ontario, and more in Quebec. And I don't have the numbers. I'm quoting Mr. Green, but I can easily see it being more than that when you start counting education costs, healthcare costs, and other various costs, hotel upkeep, etc. I could see this spiraling into a very expensive proposition. Why are we signing this compact? Mr. Green and Maxime Bernier talk about Roxham Road and 6%. How 6% of people agree with this plan. So 6% of the population of Canada agree with what Justin Trudeau and Ahmed Hassan are doing, which is an incredible number to be bludgeoning forward with this awful, awful migration plan. It bestows rights on these migrants. If you can get to our shores, if you can get here, you have rights, and Canada has to respect those rights and put you up in a hotel. Again, they underline that it cost us $1 billion this year. So another thing is the compact talks about, or Ahmed Hassan talks about, sending money to their home countries to make their home countries nicer so they won't come here. Great. That's wonderful. Mr. Green asks, why do we need a compact for that? And at the end, Mr. Bernier says, the compact doesn't solve the problem of their country's problems. It just says, yeah, you have a right to come to Canada, come to Canada. And we don't want that. We shouldn't do that. That's a problem. And I totally agree. And I wanted to point out the TrueNorth website. They do a whole bunch of stuff. But I am sick and tired of the mainstream news. And I send them emails. Every time I see a garbage piece of news like this, I send them I report the article for incorrect news, and then I call them fake news because it's ridiculous. It is absolutely criminal. And we've got some people who are putting out some real news, in my opinion. So have a look. I've read through a couple of things, and I think what they're doing is great. So have a look. And with that, I hope something happens that we haven't signed the Global Compact of Migration. But if nothing has happened, well, it's time to don those yellow vests, and it's time to start the local awareness campaign. So thank you for watching. Check out Maxime Bernier's party, the People's Party of Canada.ca, and have a wonderful evening.